Yo, what's going on, guys? It is your boy, a typical security guard, coming to you today with a live stream. Today, we're going to be talking about the reality of security guard challenges, top 5 things to consider. There's people out there right now as we speak that are thinking to themselves, hey, I'm thinking about getting a job. Maybe I'm looking for a change of pace. Maybe I want to get into law enforcement, but I'm not quite sure. Maybe there's not an opportunity for me. And so they're thinking about security, right? They're thinking about putting on the bright orange, I guess it's not orange, the bright yellow or the bright blue shirt that is associated with like Allied Universal or some of those like more big box companies. So if you're one of those people and you're like me, like I was 4 years ago, and you're just kind of searching through YouTube, trying to get some information on what it's like to be a security guard in 2024, I'm going to give you 5 things that you need to consider before getting into this job field, because you're going to hear a lot of people give you a lot of different ideas and views on the industry. But hey, I do this every single day, so let's get right into it. Number 5 is going to be that, unfortunately, you're on your own. And when I say you're on your own, I mean that literally you are on your own. You're on your own in terms of, purchasing a lot of the gear that you're going to need for your job, whether you're working an unarmed capacity, whether you're working in an armed capacity. For the most part, a broad generalization is that anything that you need to accomplish your job outside of the shirt that you're wearing, outside of some of the outer gear that they might give you, like a jacket or a beanie, you're pretty much on your own to purchase that. If you need a pair of boots, for the most part, you're going to have to get those. If you're one of those people that is, conscious of the dangers that you might come in contact with working in any capacity of security, and you want to get a stab vest or, Kevlar, bulletproof vest, anything like that, more than likely you're going to have to purchase that. If you're working in an armed capacity, you're responsible. In most cases, you're responsible to purchase your firearm. I want you to understand that just being outfitted and kitted and safely geared up to do your job, for the most part, in almost any and every capacity of working entry-level security to mid-level security, you're responsible for that. You're also on your own in terms of your post. You are going to check in probably via a mobile app or a sign-in sheet when you get to your post, whether you're working retail location, you're working parking lot detail, maybe you're working, at a warehouse, anything and everything that you might possibly do in a security capacity. More times than not, you're going to be working by yourself, and that's by yourself on the day shift, the night shift, and the graveyard shift. So you have to be aware that all of your actions, everything that you do, any interaction that you have with people, for the most part, you are going to be on your own. This seems like something that's not that difficult, not that hard to deal with, and to a large degree it's not. But if you're not ready for that, that can be very, very difficult for a lot of people. Number 4 is going to be that it's a path to nowhere. And I say that kind of. People will tell you if you're working in private security, you're wasting your time. Hey, man, if you want to be in law enforcement, don't waste your time with private security. If you're wanting to get into the military, don't waste your time with private security, especially if you're working in some of these unarmed positions. I have to say that can be true, but it's also not entirely true. When I was in the military, a large part of what I did in terms of security was just post watch, watching a door, watching a gate, sometimes working on the flight line, watching a literal red line. Very, very mundane, very, very boring work, but important work all the same. I met with this guy at a recent interview. It was at a Jewish school, and he was talking about growing up in Israel and how, everyone that comes through that community, they have to serve, like, I think it's 2 years in the military. And he was talking about when he was really young, a young man, one of his details was to work as a spotter on top of the roof of the airport. And he says, when I was 21, 22, my only job was to sit on this roof at the airport and watch this perimeter. And he goes, and I thought to myself, like, how boring it was. I used to sit there and listen to music, and I would, eat snacks and do all these things. He goes, but then looking back, like, that is such an important position to be able to look out into this area and be able to see when a threat is approaching well before it gets there, and how important of a job that is. If you're working in a security capacity, no matter how simple it seems, no matter how small it seems, if your aspirations are to go well beyond that, be it law enforcement, be it military, a lot of the basics that you learn in just your everyday average general security job, they carry over. So it's not necessarily a path to nowhere. Also, if you decide to stick with private security, there are management positions, and you have to remember that security is very, very, very broad. We tend to look at it in a really simple term. It's like, hey, you're working unarmed security, you're watching this door, you're watching this warehouse, you're patrolling this garage or this parking lot, or you're working armed security at a retail environment or a shopping mall. But armed security is everything from watching that door all the way up to being a Secret Service agent, right? There's so many things that you can do in this field. So even if you stick with private security, it's not a path to nowhere, regardless of what people sometimes try to tell you. There's lots of opportunities for you to do a lot of amazing things in private security, some of which I have actually done. Number 3, there's little chance of making money. I agree with that, mostly. If you only work in the entry level of security, you're not going to make very much money. For the most part, it's going to be minimum wage, right? They're going to pay you the absolute bare minimum that they can to get you to accomplish that job. However, just like I was telling you that there's a lot of different things that you can do, a lot of different avenues in terms of security being very broad, it is the exact same reality for your pay grade, right? If you're working in more dangerous areas, you're working in areas that are, servicing corporate entities. If you're working in the private security sector that, works in the mercenary field or works in the executive protection field, very, very easy to make 6 figures and above. I tell you this from firsthand experience. You can make 6 figures and above working in private security. Now, it all comes down to which avenue and which area of private security you're working. I can't sit here and list, 15 different ways that you can make, over $100,000, but it is very, very easy. And you don't have to do that working in Kandahar or Bahrain or some other area. You can do that here in the continental United States. You just have to find the right companies. You have to work the right amount of hours and do the the specific type of security that brings with it that type of pay grade. But they're out there. Trust me, I'm telling you from firsthand experience. Number 2, that the stigma is negative. That is true. People think very lowly of private security. However, that's changing, right? And the reason why that's changing is because of the world, right? Think about just the dynamics of the last 4 years, what we've seen, social unrest, political divides, people being locked down for the plandemic, as we like to call it, right? All of the things that have happened that have really woken people up to not only how fragile our society is, but how easily everything can fall apart, right? Take that into account with a lot of the defunding of the police, the shortage of police, the rise of illegal immigration, the rise of normalization of things like crime and drugs. People are having to, for no other options being available, people are having to, in the economic sector and in the private sector, turn to private security. Nothing makes people appreciate you more than necessity. And we have seen over the past 4 years that there is a true necessity for private security. And since that has happened, there has been a little bit more appreciation of what we do in our industry, a little bit better understanding of the role that we serve and the benefit that we can be to people in the corporate sector, the private sector, and in a neighborhood sector. So it's changing. It's not where it needs to be. We're still not getting the respect. We're not getting the appreciation that I feel that we're due, but it has changed. And I've seen that change firsthand over the last 4 years working here in Portland and speaking to people and being around people. The stigma around our industry and what people think about us is completely doing a 180, and that is a positive. Number 1 is that this is a job and not a career. I have to agree. For some people, this is a job and not a career, but for others, you have to be very aware that people look at private security. They don't really have an understanding 100% of what goes into it and what the possibilities are. You know, you have a lot of police officers that look down on security guards and say, hey, get out of the security industry, get into law enforcement. What you're doing right now, it's a job. It's not a career. Well, that depends on what your goals are. It depends on what you want to get out of this. And it depends on what you're doing with your time, with your talent, and with your money. Guys, listen, there's a huge misconception that if you work for a municipality, if you work for a government agency, if you work for, you know, a state agency, that, hey, get my feet in the door, lock in my position, and I'm good. That is not the reality of 2024 and moving beyond. Anything and everything can get cut. Budgets get cut in the military. I spent 6 years in the Air Force. I came out of the Clinton era where I saw a ton of budget cuts that came down the pipe for the military, and people that had expected that they had a 20-year guaranteed career in the military, they were no longer there. Anybody else remember COVID? People working as forward operators. We're talking about the tip of the spear. There is nothing that is more needed in our military than the people that are at the absolute tip of the spear. There was a huge number of people that lost their jobs because they refused to take the old Nothing is certain. Not your career, not your job, not contract security, not working for the government, state-run agency, municipality. Now, are those areas more likely than not to still be more sustainable than working in contract security? Absolutely. But you cannot just assume that because you're working in that environment that your job is any more secure than anybody else's job. So security can be a career depending on what you want to do with it, where you want to go with it, and what types of jobs you are looking to take. Okay. Again, it can be a career, but everything on this list, from the financial stability to you being able to purchase your equipment, to the types of jobs that you work, all of that is going to come down to you. I would say that number 1B is that the great thing about private security is that it's completely open. It's open to your interpretation. It's open to what you want to get out of it. It's no different than anything else. This is something that you can be successful at, something that you can be happy with, but it's also something that will drive you absolutely crazy and will send you running for the hills if this is not truly what you want to do. But I'm interested to know, if you're watching this video, what do you think? If you work in the private security sector, what are your thoughts on this? If you're looking to get into the private security sector, what are some of your questions? Drop them in the comments below. I've been doing this for quite a while now, and I'm more than happy to help educate you and kind of give you some ideas of what you can expect if you get into this career field. I didn't want to say job. All right. As always, guys, watch your back. Make sure that you are doing your absolute best in everything that you do. Keep your head on a swivel. Be safe. And as always, be great. All right. You guys be great.